I woke up with no face, now I must find it. I, 27, woke up with no face, a sensation of panic coursing through my body as I reached up to touch where my face should be, only to find a smooth, featureless expanse of skin. Fear gripped me as I stumbled out of bed, my heart pounding in my chest. How could this have happened? Where had my face gone? I frantically searched my bedroom, hoping to find some clue as to what had transpired while I slept. But there was nothing, no trace of my missing face anywhere. I stumbled to the bathroom, my hands shaking as I turned on the light and looked into the mirror. My reflection stared back at me, an eerie sight of blankness where my face should have been. Tears welled up in my eyes as I realized the enormity of my situation. How would I go out in public like this? How would I face my family and friends? Panic surged through me, threatening to overwhelm my senses. I quickly grabbed my phone and dialed 911, my voice shaking as I tried to explain my predicament to the operator. They promised to send someone over right away, but as I hung up the phone, a sense of unease settled over me. What if no one could help me? What if I was doomed to spend the rest of my days without a face? As I waited for the authorities to arrive, I paced back and forth in my living room, my thoughts racing in 1,000 different directions. What had I done to deserve this? Was this some kind of punishment for past sins? Or was it just a cruel twist of fate, a random act of nature that had befallen me for no reason at all? The sound of a knock at the door brought me back to reality, and I hurried to answer it, my heart in my throat. 2 police officers stood on my doorstep, their expressions confused as they took in my faceless form. I could see the disbelief in their eyes, the uncertainty of how to proceed in such a strange situation. I tried to explain what had happened, but the words came out in a jumble of fear and confusion. The officers exchanged a glance before one of them spoke up, promising to take me to the hospital to see if they could figure out what had caused my condition. As we drove to the hospital, I stared out the window, my mind reeling with the implications of my faceless existence. How would I ever be able to live a normal life again? How would I even recognize myself without a face to look at in the mirror? The doctors at the hospital were baffled by my condition, running test after test in an effort to uncover the mystery of my missing face. But all their efforts yielded no results, leaving me feeling more lost and alone than ever. Days turned into weeks as I languished in the hospital, my faceless form becoming a spectacle for the curious onlookers who passed through the halls. I could see the pity in their eyes, the whispers of disbelief that followed me wherever I went. I longed for the comfort of my own home, for the familiar surroundings that I had taken for granted before this strange affliction befell me. But even when I was finally discharged from the hospital, I found no solace in the 4 walls of my empty apartment. My family and friends tried to be supportive, but I could see the fear and revulsion in their eyes whenever they looked at me. I could hear the uncertainty in their voices, the hesitation in their gestures as they tried to interact with me in a normal way. I tried to hide my feelings of despair and self-loathing, but it was impossible to ignore the gaping hole in my identity that had been left by the absence of my face. I struggled to come to terms with the reality of my situation, to find a way to move forward in a world that no longer seemed to have a place for me. As days turned into months, I began to feel a creeping sense of darkness closing in around me. The isolation and loneliness of my existence weighed heavily on my spirit, dragging me down into a deep well of despair from which I could see no escape. Then one day a glimmer of hope appeared on the horizon. A stranger approached me in a coffee shop, their face obscured by a scarf and sunglasses. They handed me a card with a cryptic message scrawled on it in elegant script. "Seek the key to unlock your true self." Confused and intrigued, I looked up to ask them what they meant, but they had disappeared into the crowd before I could utter a word. I stared at the card, a spark of curiosity igniting within me. Could this be the answer to my prayers, the solution to my faceless dilemma? I spent days poring over the enigmatic message, trying to decipher its hidden meaning. I visited libraries, consulted experts, and scoured the internet in search of clues that might lead me to the elusive key that would unlock the true nature of my identity. And then one night, as I sat alone in my apartment, the answer came to me in a flash of insight. The key was not a physical object, a tangible artifact that could be found in the outside world. The key was within me, buried deep in the recesses of my soul, waiting to be discovered and embraced. With newfound determination, I set out on a journey of self-discovery, delving deep into the depths of my inner self in search of the truth that had eluded me for so long. I confronted my fears, my insecurities, my doubts, facing them head-on with courage and conviction. As I peeled back the layers of my own psyche, I began to uncover the source of my faceless condition. It was not a punishment or a curse, but a manifestation of my own inner turmoil, a reflection of the fractured nature of my own sense of self. And as I came to terms with the reality of my situation, as I embraced the truth of who I was and who I could become, a miraculous transformation took place. Slowly but surely, my face began to reappear piece by piece, until I gazed into the mirror and saw my reflection staring back at me, whole and complete once more. Tears of joy streamed down my face as I marveled at the miracle that had taken place within me. I had found the key to unlock my true self, to reclaim my identity and my sense of purpose in a world that had once seemed so cold and unforgiving. But even as I basked in the glow of my newfound understanding, a shadow fell across my heart. What would become of me now, in a world that had rejected me in my hour of need? Would I be able to find a place for myself in a society that valued appearance above all else? As I pondered these questions, uncertainty gnawed at my soul, leaving me adrift in a sea of doubt and confusion. And as the darkness closed in around me once more, I found myself asking the same question that had haunted me from the very beginning. Am I the asshole? Update. As I ventured back out into the world, my face restored and my sense of self renewed, I encountered a mixture of reactions from those around me. Some greeted me with open arms, relieved to see me whole and complete again. Others, however, still regarded me with suspicion and fear, unable to fully comprehend the miraculous transformation that had taken place within me. I tried to explain my journey of self-discovery, to share the enlightenment that had brought me back to myself, but my words fell on deaf ears. The world around me had not changed, and I found myself once again struggling to find my place in a society that defined worth by outward appearance. The whispers and stares followed me wherever I went, a constant reminder of the isolation and alienation that I had experienced in my darkest moments. And even as I tried to move forward with a newfound sense of purpose, I couldn't shake the feeling that I would never truly belong. Conclusion. And so, as I stand on the precipice of a new beginning, my face restored but my heart heavy with doubt, I can't help but wonder if the true villain in this story is not the faceless monster that once haunted me, but the society that created it. A society that values appearance over substance, that judges worth based on superficial criteria, that tears down those who dare to be different. As I look out at the world around me, I see the same faces that once turned away from me in fear and revulsion. I see the same judgments, the same prejudices, the same narrow-mindedness that nearly destroyed me. And in that moment, I realize that perhaps the answer to my question is not so simple. Am I the asshole? Or is it the world that made me feel that way in the first place? In the end, perhaps the true villain is not a faceless monster, but a faceless society that refuses to see beyond the surface, that refuses to accept those who don't fit neatly into their narrow definitions of normalcy. And so, as I turn away from the world that rejected me, as I embark on a new journey of self-acceptance and self-love, I leave behind those who couldn't see past the mask of my appearance. I leave behind the faces that once haunted me, knowing that I am more than the sum of my parts, more than the face that looks back at me in the mirror. And as I walk away, leaving both sides hating each other, I do so with a sense of peace and a newfound understanding of my own worth. For I have found the key to unlock my true self, and nothing in this world can ever take that away from me. Was this person in the wrong? Comment down below and make sure to like and subscribe.